Welcome back, everybody, to the Building Equity Podcast. I'm James Schlimmer. We've got a show today. We've got an announcement, and I'm going to try to make this as exciting as possible because we are talking landlord insurance, landlord property insurance. Doesn't sound like the sexiest of topics, but it is because we have a legend on the podcast today, and we've got a great partnership we want to announce. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Kris Anderson of the Anderson Agency Group. This guy has over 20 years experience when it comes to property insurance. So I don't think there's anybody better in the entire country for IRA Title Pro to partner with if we're trying to help equity trust self-directed IRA investors who are buying real estate. How do you insure your properties the right way? I think you need landlord property insurance. Kris, thank you so much for joining the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, James. Happy to be here. I enjoyed that intro. I appreciate that. We're excited about this relationship as well. We think it's going to do great things for everybody involved. So,
well, let me just tell you. So when I came on board looking to try to create the perfect real estate suite of products and services for equity trust self-directed real estate investors, always in the back of my mind was property insurance. One, because obviously you want to protect your assets, right? Now, I understand that you were up in Indianapolis. I understand it's 5 degrees. I understand that you have over 20 years where you've dedicated your whole professional career to the Anderson Agency Group. Can you give us a little bit of background on you and what you love about property insurance?
yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So yeah, we're a 43 plus year old agency now that my dad founded, and we have worked with landlords and real estate investors and the flippers of the world, and also private lenders and lenders on the depository side too, since we were born in 1980. So yeah, it's been a long road. I've been doing this since roughly 2004. Graduated college, took about a year doing some other things, and then I joined the agency and kind of took it from there. So when we first started, we were a little bit more regional, and now we've got a nationwide footprint. And I would venture to say we've got real estate investors in probably 35 states, and I'd say properties in close to 40, maybe even higher than that. But we are licensed in all the states, so we're good to go when it comes to that.
I tell you what, so without further ado, here's the announcement. What we can say now on IRA Title Pro, so equity trust self-directed IRA investors, if you're purchasing real estate, you're a real estate investor, you have unique needs when it comes to your property insurance. Off IRA Title Pro, you're going to be able to get an instant quote on your properties for landlord insurance for the modern investor, as we like to say. And really what's happening behind the scenes, Kris and I have been working on this for all of last quarter, essentially, which would have been fourth quarter 2023. We're launching this here in the beginning of 2024. We wanted equity trust investors to be able to, while you're going through the closing process, get an instant quote. And then behind the scenes, Kris's entire team is right there taking a look at your request. They'll reach out to you. They will hold your hand and guide you to get that insurance bound so you're ready to make sure that you're covered when you make your investment using your self-directed IRA. Now, with that, Kris, I got to ask a question. I got some questions.
Sure. Let's hear.
Can you explain to me what the difference is between investor landlord insurance and just a regular homeowner's insurance policy? What is the difference, and why should our listeners care?
Good question. So the big one is contents coverage a lot of times with landlord insurance. And depending on if it's a long-term rental or a short-term rental, sometimes they do have the contents protection on that, and sometimes the landlords choose to not carry it on there. So that's one of the big differences, is the contents, and also the loss of rents coverage. So you're going to want loss of rents protection on that property in case something does happen. And so with loss of rents, what triggers that? So if the house becomes uninhabitable due to a covered peril, whether it burns down and there's a completely to the ground, or a tree falls on the roof and it's just leaking water constantly and they can't contain the conditioned air in there, then that renter is going to have to move out of the place. So the loss of rent coverage is something that kicks in and actually pays the landlord that missing income cash flow that they would get from that property if a renter was in there. So in the event something happens, we pay that monthly rent to them so they're not out anything on there. So
Okay.
those are a couple of the big ones.
Which makes perfect sense to me. Now, can you give me just a little bit of example? To me, what matters is like, hey, Equity Trust is a monster company. We are a nationwide. IRA Title Pro is a national title company. You're a national property insurance company. Yet we've got real people that are literally just trying to, make their first investment, buying a piece of real estate. Can you just explain a little bit behind the scenes, your team, who's literally going to see the quotes? Let's say, for instance, for whatever reason, the premium doesn't show up when they try to get the instant quote because the property didn't qualify. What's going on behind the scenes with your real people that have the ability to kind of hold the hand of our investors to get them coverage?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So that's one of the neat things about this integration too, is there's already trust from your guys' customers in you guys in IRA Title Pro. And so they know that you guys are going to go out and find the best products that they are available to them. So you've already vetted us and who we are and our policies. And so you know what we're going to be delivering to those landlords, to those property owners are going to be good policies and good products at a good premium amount. So in doing so, we've created this API integration to where it's a one-click stop to get an actual quote on a property. And then from there, there's some background work that goes in. It might take 20, 30 seconds and then a quote is delivered. So that quote is going to come from a carrier that has an appetite that's in probably 45 states, 43 states. Actually, I think they're in 46 states. So anything outside of that is when our team and our people jump on that and actually hold your hand and help you guys through the process of finding insurance outside of this API integration through our IRA Title Pro. So we've got a team of 7 people inside of the office. 6 of us are all licensed. We've probably got 110 plus years of experience total in the insurance industry, and that's insurance of nothing but property and casualty too. So people have been either dealing directly with banks and credit unions, private lenders, or been dealing directly with real estate investors.
Chris, I got to ask this question because I have multiple investment properties. I have multiple different businesses. I am constantly approached by insurance agents that say, James, you want an umbrella policy to cover everything. It's going to be cheaper for you and you're going to save more money in the long run. I would imagine that many equity trust, self-directed IRA real estate investors have multiple properties and are questioning, should I get an umbrella policy? Or maybe should I get a single landlord insurance policy for every single property? What's the best way to do it?
Yeah, good question. And it's a great idea, especially if you have 5 or more properties, because it's going to save you not only money, but it's going to save you time. So you're not only going from tracking a policy on every single property, you're now going to just track one policy with all your properties. And if you own properties that are across state lines, it's even better because the policy can handle that too. Versus if you're there in Florida and you got 10 properties, but now you want to jump in Mississippi or Tennessee and go buy 5 or 10, then you got to go find an agent, right? Well, not with a master policy or an umbrella policy. You can actually have those written in multiple states. And you do see a premium discount there too, because now the carrier's insuring you with all your properties versus they're insuring individual properties with you. So it does help from that standpoint too. In the managing of those. So now you're going to get either one invoice, or if it's paid out of escrow and with a mortgagee on it, then we're going to handle all of that for you too, and the billing of all that. So the UIs are created in-house for you, delivered to those mortgagees, as are the invoices on an annual basis.
So Anderson has the ability to take a look at any investor's current situation. If you have 1 property, if you have 10 properties, and you're able to kind of find the best solution, right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And those master policies, most of them are built for single families or 1 to 4s. And that's where they kind of hold the best. Once you get into multi-units, the 5+ or the apartments, there are policies out there that will cover that on a master policy or umbrella basis, but the properties do have to be, newer and better, or at least rehabbed pretty recently. So, but there's opportunities on both sides. And
Okay. I would imagine that there are many folks that say, you know what? Let me just go to Geico. Let me go to Progressive. I get the emails every day. I'll just click it, get this coverage, and I can move on because, hey, nothing really is ever going to happen to the property, right? And I need to check the box and get the insurance, right? I love the fact that we're actually seeing you because we're real people, but how does the Anderson Agency Group differ from, a Geico or a Progressive when it comes to these investor policies?
well, we're not a captive, number one. So we're not just selling, Geico paper or State Farm paper or Farmers paper or any of that. So being a broker or agent, you can go out and find the best policy with the best premium. So when and these policies themselves too, they are written specifically for real estate investors. They're non-admitted paper versus admitted paper. And we can get into that if you want, but it's a little bit of a longer explanation there. But the difference there is these policies are written specifically for real estate investors. They're not written to match up with the state's guidelines of what either a DP1 policy or DP3 policy, DP1 dwelling policy and dwelling policy 3. So there's
Okay.
differences in coverages there. So how we're going to differ is we're going to find the appropriate carrier and the appropriate policy for what you're looking for, how you're running your business. So the Geicos of the world, they're great and they will write these types of policies, but this isn't the type of business that they're necessarily looking for. So whereas this is what we do, this is what we're looking for, this is what we specialize in.
So if I'm a real estate investor and I am heading over to IRA Title Pro and I'm trying to get a quote, or I'm using IRA Power Loans, the brand new non-recourse lender, small plug, and I
Small plug.
see, okay, wait a second, Connecticut, Florida, Hawaii, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, I can't get a quote. I
Mhm.
know I specifically, selfishly, I want to ask about Florida. Florida is a challenge right now for getting coverage, period. I would
Mhm.
imagine part of me, I feel like I could do a whole podcast. We had the Hurricane Irma. We had just complete assignment of benefits fraud throughout the entire state.
Yep.
And then we just had Ian. We were in rough shape before Hurricane Ian. Then Ian comes. Can you touch a little bit about what you know about Florida? And is there any light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to coverage in the state?
Uh, Light at the end of the tunnel. That's a great question. If we have a clean 2024 from a claim standpoint, meaning no more tropical storms, hurricanes, um, then I would say you probably could start seeing things lighten up beginning of 2025 for Florida. Maybe that first or second quarter. You might start seeing some carriers jump back in the mix there. And the issue is with the reinsurance too. So all of these carriers, they go out and purchase reinsurance, which is essentially insurance for the insurance that backs it. And so that's where the issues are coming from, a lot of them. And Florida also went through a lot of updates on the building codes. And so a lot of carriers hadn't underwritten enough premium in order to match up with what they're going to have to come out of pocket in the event there is a claim, because the standards are higher to build that property back. So so those two things can together combine for a bad situation. A lot of carriers leave the state until they can go find more reinsurance and get comfortable with writing Florida again.
Sure. Can you tell our viewers what's literally happening? I say literally, but I feel like at a high level, they come to IRA Title Pro, they're popping in their address, they pick their deductible option, 2,500, 5,000 or 10,000. They pick their policy start date, which we'd love to be 30 days or less. And they put their contact information. When it's running this API, it's doing a search. I'm sure it's looking at the property. I think it's doing an OFAC search on the actual user. Can you give a little bit more context and then touch on, hey, if a premium doesn't come back for whatever reason, what's your team doing behind the scenes?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So when they're clicking, get quoted on that API, it's running those two things. And a lot of the major things they look for are location. Is it a tier one county? Meaning, is it a coastal county? So if so, a lot of carriers don't like that 2 miles within 2 mile distance within the property and saltwater. So they
Mm.
want anything past that. So on those coastal counties, so they'll take a look at that. Crime rating is a big one too, and just historical weather conditions through there. Are they likely to get a tornado, hurricane, strong winds, fire? If you take a look at California in particular, the fire rating out there is different than it is anywhere else in the country. So, and that's always funny too, because you may have a neighborhood that's split right down the middle of a county or a township, and the fire department might be closer over there than it is over here. So you might have the exact same zip code and the exact same neighborhood, but the premiums are 2 or 3 times as much just because they're that much further away from the fire station.
Wow. Okay. So now that's granularity. I love that
Yeah,
stuff. So what you're saying is your premium could be affected by your distance from the fire station, right?
that's
Because
correct.
their response time, wow, that well makes logical sense.
Yeah, in California, right? That side of that neighborhood, it might be the one that's up in the mountains,
Yeah.
one lanes. So 5 to 10 minutes with a huge fire is not a fun situation to be in if you're a property owner. Um, so yeah, that
So
comes into
this is, I mean, completely out of the blue, but I know that
Mhm.
it's 5 degrees in Indianapolis where you're at right now. There's an Arctic blast making its way across the whole entire country. A couple years back, Texas had their issues with that freeze. Are you seeing anything out of the ordinary when it comes to, landlord property insurance and just the cold weather that we've had throughout the years?
Yeah, we do, especially in those states that aren't built for it. I want here in Indianapolis, it's 5 degrees. We're not built for 5 degrees, but we're built for colder temperatures, unlike Texas, where they're not built for colder temperatures. So so the pipes freeze quicker. Those pipes can burst, and then now you've got leakage. You've got everything going everywhere. So yeah, it's that's something that they take into account too. And Texas is Texas. Texas coastal gets a lot of hurricane and high winds, but then you get north of that, they're either getting a freeze or ice or snow once a year too. It seems like the last few years. So higher claims do come with all of those things involved as well. So, and that brings up a point too with water damage. That's one thing that is built into all the policies that we write, which is sewer and water backup, which is something that you want because if you're a homeowner, you're typically in and out of your house a lot. If you're renting that property out, you don't necessarily know how often they're in and out of that house. And, if somebody flushes something they shouldn't, or if it goes down the tub and it shouldn't have, and then the next thing you know, water's rising and it starts leaking out of there. Maybe they're gone for work for the next 12 hours, right? And so now you've got a huge potential claim that could have just been a small claim if you had more people coming in and out of the house. So that's something that you should look for. Sewer and water backup is a good coverage endorsement for these landlord policies because you just don't know what you don't know with the renters.
Kris, one, I thank you so much for joining us here on the Building Equity Podcast. Number two, I thank you so much for taking the time over the last 3 months to try to help build this integration for equity trusts, self-directed IRA, real estate investors. I'm very excited to be able to offer it. Our goal is that you and your team can just kind of, handle these investors with kid gloves and make sure that they're taken care of. Is there anything else that you want before I give the phone number? If we'll plaster it on the screen here. If you have questions for property insurance, feel free to reach out to Kris and his team at 317-635-5070. Or by the time you see this, you can head over to IRA Title Pro. You can use this instant quote integration, and then his team will be able to reach out to you and get that bound. But any parting words, Kris?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity and the time and the relationship, and we look forward to taking care of your guys' customers, the IRA Title Pro customers. other integrations that we have, people absolutely love this because it's one thing they don't have to go do on their own. So they click a button, get a quote, or if that gets rejected, we call them. It's about a 5 to 7 minute phone call, and boom, they'll have a quote within 24, 48 hours typically. So we're
That's
looking
awesome. I can tell you we're looking at 2 additional products through Kris's team that we want to be able to offer to equity trust real estate investors. I'm done planting the seed for that, but you'll know when the time comes. But I assure you, when we do try to release something, we're doing it to make it easier for you. We want it to be efficient for your time. We want it to be inexpensive for you so you can maximize your ROI on your investment. We want you to be able to have a great product or service. And that's what we're trying to do. So Kris, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Many more to come. And we will talk to you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.